Nama Om Gauravani. Nama Om Gauravani. And I thank all of you for being with us this evening. It is my great pleasure. I just came off a flight. I was flying from Bombay to London, but the volcano started making ashes. So I was detoured from Bombay to Zambia in Africa, then to Tunisia, and then to London. And I arrived last night. So I'm kind of still here and still there. But I'm very grateful for all of you to come here and for allowing me to speak to you. The topic of tonight, the responsibility of human beings to be compassionate. Something like that. Compassion is the greatest need in the world. There's really enough of everything if you add compassion to it. And without compassion, there's never ever, and there could never be enough of everything for everyone. At our ashram in Mumbai, there are many rich people, and also the largest slum in all of Asia. And the schools in these slums have about 1 million children. And many of those children, they don't go to school for a very simple reason. They're hungry. And when you're really hungry, it's very difficult to concentrate. In fact, a huge proportion of them don't even bother going to school. They'd rather go out and beg, usually under some mafia, where they have to give 80% of whatever they beg, and they get to keep 20, but they can eat. So this is a great reason for illiteracy, hunger. So the government personally asked our ashram, can you help? Because we can't do it. It's just too much. So we approached our congregation and some others that we know, and just from the ashram we have, we're feeding 210,000 children every day. And the government wants us to do another 500,000. And according to the funds we get, we do. But it's an example. Now these children are getting educated because they have some nourishment, very good nourishment, and they're going to graduate, and most of them are going to go to college, and they're going to have a life in front of them. Otherwise, they'll either be beggars for the mafia, or they'll join the mafia, or they'll suffer poverty terribly throughout their lives. So it's an example. The food is there if there's just compassion. And on every level, this is the biggest problem in the world. All of the ecological, environmental problems, it really comes down to compassion. Do we really care about humanity? Are the corporations more concerned about their own power and income? Or do they really care about the world? Individuals, the choices they make every day, do we really just care about flowing with the current of how everybody else does things? Or are we concerned about the choices we make, how it affects other people, how it affects the earth herself? Compassion is on many levels. I'd like to speak from the perspective of the Bhagavad Gita and the ancient Sanskrit text called the Vedas. A very brief, condensed summary of what compassion really is. There's a saying, paradukha dukhi, which means that a person of high values is one who other people's suffering is our suffering, or my suffering. And other people's happiness is my happiness. Now, the tendency is we become selective in regard to who is worthy of my compassion. The broader the spectrum of our compassion expands, the deeper fulfillment there is to one's life. There's a beautiful verse, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sajjika Bunoi Saravanadi Sudhijeti Koriya Udoi, which means pure love. Love for God, which manifests as compassion for all living beings. That is within every living being's heart. The deeper we go within our own self to realize who we are and what is our relationships with others, the greater the knowledge and experience we have of compassion and love. The first and great commandment of the Judeo-Christian faith is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. To the degree we find that love within our own heart, to that degree naturally it will extend to every living being. The Bhagavad Gita has a verse that tells what is true intelligence. Vidyavanaya sampane, brahmani gavihastini, sunichaiva sapakicha pandita samadarshana. Who is an intelligent person? A person who sees every living being with equal vision. Whether one is a man or a woman, whether one is Indian, American, Pakistani, Palestinian, Israeli, African, whether one is rich or poor, Hindu, Jain, Parsi, Sikh, Christian, Muslim, Jew, atheist, agnostic, whether one is a human or an elephant or a cow or a dog or a cat, what do we all have in common? Life. What is the nature of life? What is the difference between a living body and a dead body? It is consciousness. Now, according to these great spiritual traditions, the source of consciousness is the Atma. Or sometimes translated into English, it's the life force, the soul, that which animates us. That's what it is, that or who is seeing through our eyes and hearing through our ears and tasting through our tongue and touching through our flesh, thinking through our brain and loving through our heart. And when that Atma leaves the body is like a car without a driver. There's no consciousness. Can't do anything. Now, to know the body And to know the mind is to understand the gross and subtle coverings, but to actually understand the nature of me, the consciousness that's witnessing through all the changes of this life of mine. That is the deepest knowledge. And when we understand our own spiritual essence, then we can naturally identify that same spiritual essence wherever there is life. And at that time, if we actually have that experience, we really care. Now, some people may say that this type of philosophy could make one very hard-hearted toward this world. Because after all, if we're not these bodies, we're the eternal souls, so who cares what we do to other people's bodies? But actually, it's just the opposite. Because we understand this body and this mind, this emotional system, is what the soul is living in. And to respect the soul, you have to honor how we're connecting with that soul. Because when the body suffers, the soul is identifying with that. When the mind suffers, the soul is identifying with that. So to actually love the soul, to love the life force, the very essence within everyone, means to honor and respect every living being's rights. What do they say here in America? They're life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for every living being. The first day I was in India, I was sitting at a table in New Delhi with somebody. It's a long story, because I had no money, and I hitchhiked from London to India. This was in 1970. It took 6 months. This time I was hitchhiking because British Airways, their flights were canceled. And I was supposed to leave Monday, but the 19th of April. And some person, an old friend, came and said, "I heard your flight was canceled." And I said, "Yes." He said, "So you have nothing to do tonight?" I said, "Well, I'm just about to go to sleep because I have nothing to do. My flight's canceled and all my schedule was up until today." He said, "Well, come with me. I'm going to Zambia. I have a private jet." I said, "It doesn't cost?" I said, "It doesn't cost anything?" He said, "No." I said, "All right." So, from the perspective of altitude, it was a very high level of hitchhiking. It was a detour, but I did make it to London for free. But I hitchhiked, and the first day I was in India, first time I was so close to a cow, closer than Radhanath, about this close actually. In fact, I was going like this to the cow. And she had a little calf that was so attached to her mother, and the mother was so attached to the cow. The cow kept reaching over and licking the little calf. The little calf was jumping around and pushing the mother with his nose, wanting to get licked again. And then the mother went from you and licked her. And I was just watching, thinking, it's beautiful. They love each other. Take away the sophistication and the intellectualism, and it's the same emotion, same feeling of love as between humans that I'm seeing here. And how the mother with the calf went away, danced, just jumping around. The mother was so worried, looking around, and then the calf came back, and she was little tears in her eyes, and she was licking her. And my host ordered some food. They put it down. This table was right on the roadside. It's not like the roadside cafes in Manhattan, in Old Delhi, but it is a roadside cafe. And he asked me, would you like to know what the food is? And I said, please, because I never saw Indian food before. He said, this is rice, this is chapati, this is dal, this is sabji, this is chutney. And then he said, and this on the rice is meat. Do you know, I was now about 19 years old. It was the first time in my entire life I made the connection. I was looking at these chunks of meat, and I was looking at the calf and the cow, and right at that moment, seconds after he said this is meat, the cow who was licking her calf again and again turned her head to me and licked my leg. And I started to cry. All my life I've been eating these people, and I never even considered the reality of what it took for me to eat this stuff. One of these little calves and one of these cows is going to have to die, directly and indirectly, or indirectly. So I started to cry. And my host was really confused. He was trying to make me happy. He said, is something wrong? And I said, I'm feeling ill, I have to go. And I left. And that night, things happened to me. Very, very traumatic things happened to me. And I was dreaming of this little calf and this beautiful cow just looking at me. And in the dream, I saw a butcher slaughter them. And I woke up and I was sick. And I vowed never to eat meat again. Now, vegetarianism, people take to this type of diet for different reasons. But this was the reason I made this choice. I was thinking, the higher the quality of our values, the more fulfilling our life can be. And we should be deep. And we should feel responsible. How what we're doing is affecting others. Are we uplifting them? Or are we doing the opposite? Are we giving happiness? Or are we giving suffering? Of course, this world is a very complicated place, and there's so many implications and so many situations that are interconnected. But overall, real fulfillment comes through love. The fundamental need of every living being is to love and be loved. In my life, I mix with many different people. Sometimes I'm in the ghettos and trying to uplift people there. Sometimes I'm in the mansions of billionaires, trying to uplift people there. But what I found is happiness is not about what you have. It's not about your status or your prestige or your monetary value. That stuff's all superficial. Happiness is about inner fulfillment. And inner fulfillment is determined by the values in which we live. Inner fulfillment ultimately is about satisfying the need of the heart to love and to be loved. This chanting that our newly formed band, Nama Om Gauravani, it actually has a very, very deep purpose. This chanting of mantras or sacred sounds is meant for the purpose of awakening that love that is dormant within our heart. There's a beautiful prayer. Chaito darpana marajanam bhava mahadavagni nirvapana. That this love is dormant within us. And the mind is like a mirror. When the Atma, when the true self looks at the world, we all have to look through the mind. If the mind is clean, it's like a mirror where we actually see ourselves. We see our relationship with truth, with God, and we see our essential brotherhood and sisterhood with every living being. That's our nature. But when the mind is covered by dust and pollution and debris for a long, long time, that debris is so thick that when we look through the mirror of the mind, all we see is the dust. And we identify ourselves with that. And what is that dust? Our selfishness, our false egoism, our greed, our envy of others who have more or something that we want. And as long as these qualities of lust and envy and anger and greed and passion and selfishness and all these illusions, as long as they are covering our mind, we consider that satisfying this thing is what's going to make me happy. But it can't. But this spirituality, in whatever process we have, it's actually meant simply to clean the mirror of the heart and the mind, to awaken the original natural qualities of you and me. When they were chanting these mantras, it is a meditation of purifying, cleaning the mind and the heart, and awakening the true qualities of ourself, which is humility, love, compassion, charity, all the qualities that people really look up to in this world. I was talking to a man who's a billionaire just a few days ago. In fact, he's the one who took me on his private jet. I was hitchhiking. I haven't had a bank account since 1969. And I have no property. I have nothing except, good friends. And I have God's name, so I'm happy. Somehow or other, things are provided, and I get to help feed 210,000 people a day, so it's nice having nothing. But I was speaking to him, and very interesting. His wife told me she was brought up in a village, and how she sometimes longs to be in that village again. And he was telling me that it's not about what you have or who you know. It's about inner fulfillment. And he said, none of this stuff that I'm doing brings inner fulfillment. The only thing that brings it is when I could love people, when I feel loved by people, and when I can help people. That brings inner fulfillment. This is a universal truth. Religion or spirituality is not about being a Hindu or a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or a Jain, or a Parsi, or a Sikh, or a Buddhist. Real religion is about learning how to love and how to be an instrument of compassion. And these are different paths and different methods, revealed in different places and time. But the truth behind it all is the same. Actually, in the Vedas, the word Hindu is never written. The name is Sanatana Dharma, which means the universal, non-sectarian, eternal nature of every living being, which is to love God, to awaken that love for God, and be a spirit of God's compassion in every aspect of our life. And there are many problems in this world. One of the biggest problems is religion, which is meant to do that. But when even religion or spirituality is seen through the lens of this dusty mind, and then it's taught by people who are seen through that lens, then it's just an extension of the false ego. I'm a Hindu, or I'm a Christian, or I'm a Muslim, and therefore I'm right and you're wrong. And that justifies cruelty. Whatever it is, nationalism, spiritualism, religion, if it's based on this misconception of the ego, if we don't see that the real purpose of it is to awaken those divine qualities within us, then what's supposed to create the solution creates a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. There's a beautiful word, saragrahi. An actual spiritual person is one who is always looking for the essence in others. Even if a person does bad, we may have to deal with that. But on a deeper level, really, who is that person? What is their true nature? And what has driven them to act this bad? Saragrahi means also in every situation that comes upon us, whether it's success or failure, honor or dishonor, happiness or distress, pleasure or pain, health or disease, life or death. This whole world is built upon the principles of these dualities. We can't have one without the other. We would like that, but it just doesn't happen. Whichever of these dualities are coming before us, saragrahi means to seek the essence of the opportunity in every situation to grow in wisdom, love, and compassion. It also means when we look at our own spiritual path or the spiritual paths of others, we're not just looking at the superficial rituals and the superficial philosophical explanations or the superficial ways of dress or hairstyles. These things have their importance. They have good importance, providing we're connecting the externals with the essence. Otherwise, we miss the whole point. I remember once living on the bank of the Ganges, and there was an old man. He was about 85 or something. And every day he would tell me, he would share his spiritual wisdom with me. And every day he would take me to his best friend. Now this man was a Hindu, devotee of Ram. And he would take me to his best friend's X-ray clinic. And his best friend's name was Muhammad, and he was a Muslim. And they would share their ideas about spirituality for about an hour or two every day. And I would share mine. After some days, I said to this friend of mine, Narayan, I said, how is it in a country where there's so much conflict between Hindus and Muslims that you're best friends together? And he told me a very nice analogy that I never forgot. 39 years later. May I share it with you? He said, a dog will identify his or her master in whatever way his or her master dresses. Sometimes the master of the dog may be in a suit and tie. Other times in a tuxedo. Other times in a t-shirt and blue jeans. Other times in his underpants. Other times when coming out of the shower, he's not wearing anything. He said the dog will always recognize his master in whatever dress he wears. In the same way, God is the one supreme master of all living beings. And if a person in their religion cannot identify him in different ways that the Supreme Lord dresses, different ways that the Lord appears, and the Lord is both male and female, then we're less than that dog. If we're seeking the essence, we will appreciate, we will be invigorated by other people's spirituality, in whatever form it may be. So compassion is a very deep subject. Compassion for all beings, including Mother Earth. She's providing everything for everyone at all times. If we plunder or exploit the earth, it's going to create imminent suffering for so many. If our environmentalism or ecological sensitivity is simply based on creating a better, more sustainable external world, that's wonderful. But the deeper we go into the essence of compassion, even environmentalism takes on a very, very pure spiritual quality where we genuinely care. Why? Because we love. If you love someone, you really care about them. It's not just an ideal. It's not just an ideology. It's not just a science. It's that, but something even deeper. Love means to really care. Love means to have compassion. So Nama Om Gauravani, their singing is meant to awaken that inner essence, that compassion from within themselves. And because these spiritual sound vibrations are divine, they also awaken that quality within anyone who hears. And even those who don't hear, because any word we speak, anything we do, actually emits an energy that spreads throughout the universe. It's not just about what happens within these four walls. Our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Every living being is like an antenna. And we're emitting these vibrations into the world and into the universe. And it spreads everywhere because energy, this type of energy, is not limited to time and space. So according to the qualities and the choices that we make, each and every one of us is actually affecting creation in a very special way. And that gives a very fulfilling meaning to life. I'd like to end by saying something that really struck my heart. 3 days ago, I was with a sister of mine who I've known for many years. She was dying of cancer. In fact, when I was in Zambia, the person who was taking me in his plane got a text message that this girl had 24 hours to live. And she really wanted to see me before she departed. So I was thinking, maybe this is why I'm in Zambia, because I could have never gotten to London through Bombay. So the morning, I arrived late at night, and early morning I went to see her. And the next day she passed away. But her husband told me a few days before she said something that was very, very special. She was in her last stages of cancer. She was paralyzed, her spine. She was unrecognizable, totally emaciated. It was the saddest thing to see her in that state, in terrible pain. And when you're in that condition, sometimes you can feel pretty useless. And people get depressed. She was suffering and going down and down for about a year. And she said to her husband with a smile on her face, it's a few days before she left, she said that I feel like I have unlimited value. The reason is because I know that God loves me. And actually, God loves every living being. So every living being has unlimited value. On that basis, why can't we see that in ourselves? And why can't we see that in other living beings? She said, it doesn't matter living or dying. I feel that unlimited eternal value because I could feel that God loves me. One of the greatest diseases in this century, according to the World Health Organization, is depression, mental illness. People don't feel valued. But it is each and every one of our ability, it's our capacity, it's our potential to see the true value in ourselves and to see the true value in others and to honor that and respect that. And that is a deep level of compassion that's accessible to all of us. And it's for this reason that they are chanting these secret sounds to awaken that compassion from within. Many of you are university students. Your education is of great value. But education is power. And power in the hands of a compassionate person has the greatest value. The same power in the hands of a cruel person, a greedy person, an envious person, can have the most destructive power, results. So along with your wonderful education, whether you become business, women or men, or doctors or lawyers, or actors or screenwriters, or scientists, or farmers, or activists, or swamis, musicians, mothers, fathers, with whatever talents we gain, if we utilize them with wisdom and compassion, we could be instruments to have a tremendous positive effect of changing the world. Thank you very much. Would anyone like to ask a question? So, Om Gauravani will sing one more little song, and then the mountain of food is eagerly waiting. We should be so grateful. We should be so grateful for all the gifts we have in our life. Every morsel of food, every drop of rain. A grateful heart is a heart that is fertile for the seed of love and compassion to grow. Grateful to each other. And I'm very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.